What's going on, everybody? Just because the NFL draft is over doesn't mean I'm done evaluating and ranking players. I think I'm going to build a big board of NFL guys, taking the top 10 at every position throughout the offseason. And this is a very long video. I give you scouting reports on all my top 10 guys, their strengths, their weaknesses, plays I really like. I don't know if I'm going to do it quite the same way in the future because this video is pushing an hour long. But for now, that's what we're working with. It's a lot of football, so let's get right into it. Enjoy. At number 10, I've got a guy who's been a favorite of mine since he was a rookie, Tony Pollard. And he's never been the main guy in Dallas because Zeke has always been there. But whenever they give him the ball, something good seems to happen. I love him as a one-cut runner. Run zone, let him read things out behind the line of scrimmage. Once a lane opens up, all he needs is one cut. Plants that foot and goes. And he's got great burst and home run speed. He creates explosive plays very frequently in these situations. Every year that Pollard has been in the league, he's been in the top 15 in explosive run rate, and his career yards per carry is over 5. And we're getting to the point where that's on a big enough sample size for it to be something serious. Here, Zach Martin is going to pull, Pollard is going to follow his blocker, but there's plenty of hazards. There's heavy backside pursuit, Roquan Smith blitzes untouched, and Pollard has to outrun guys in the backfield, which he's able to do, and then he's able to make his cut. He has a good aiming point. He's aiming right for the ass of his tight end here, just to ensure that this linebacker has to go the maximum amount of distance to catch him. He's pressing him so closely that it looks like he might get tripped up by the tight end's feet, so he leaps over them, which he doesn't really end up having to do, but he's prepared to. Squeezes through the gap, he's onto the second level, and at this point, he's got such speed that he is gone. Not many guys catching Pollard in the open field like this. I appreciate Pollard's endurance on these long runs. On this one against the Rams, I mean, he's got to break tackles. He's got to run through guys. He's got to run 55 yards plus more because he's bending this inside and he's still able to finish the play. He has more speed than power. He's not someone I expect to absorb a solid hit and keep going. He's not someone I expect when he gets ahead of steam to just punish the safety by lowering the shoulder. But getting it done with speed or strength, it doesn't really matter as long as you're getting it done. And Pollard had over 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns while splitting time last season. And the speed makes up for the lack of strength, man. I mean, how many guys are scoring here without getting pushed out of bounds by Von Bell? Not many. Pollard is a great one-cut runner. He's a great home run hitter. And the other thing I really like about him, he's a great pass protector. And that's what gets me really excited about him. He can be a three-down guy. He's a guy you want out there in passing situations. Giants defensive coordinator Wink Martindale was trying to heat him up in this game, and Pollard shut it down every single time. It was great. Pollard has a chance to quickly tumble down this list, I have to admit. He's coming off a pretty major injury, but with no Zeke in the backfield, I think it's more likely that a guy with this kind of talent and production in the past cements himself as a top 10 guy. That's what I'm hoping will happen. At number 9, I've got Patriots running back Rhamondre Stevenson. Rhamondre Stevenson is a solid, sturdy back, but he also has surprising movement skills for me, just based on what his frame looks like. He can run real routes, he can set guys up, and he's got a lot of acceleration coming out of turns to get separation. He's always open on these things. And then the yards after catch ability here, really special. Almost falls down, but stays balanced, gets back up, notices the leverage of his blocker, ducks back inside to keep Sauce Gardner blocked here, and then is able to run back outside and pick up about 5 extra yards after this catch. Again, on this play, in man coverage versus a linebacker, he sets him up, gets on his toes, creates a little bit of indecision, accelerates outside. There's a lot of separation there. Nice catch, first down. Here they design him a touch, a screen out of the backfield, and this throws a bit far in front of him. Reaches out, snags it with one hand, gets to top speed quickly, picks up the first down. Here they've got him running a Texas route out of the backfield, and there were wide receivers drafted high in this year's draft that can't cut at 90 degrees as efficiently as Rhamondre Stevenson does right here. The Patriots knew he was a good weapon out of the backfield. They gave him 90 targets last year. So you've got one of the best route runners at the running back position in the league, but he's in the body of this stout power back. He's a very unique player, and he's a really talented runner as well. Here, he's run between the tackles, quick to find the cutback lane. Thanks, Tillery. Gets into open field, and check out the move he puts on number 30. Jukes him out of his shoes and then drags 2 tacklers a good amount of yards as well. He's got a good feel of how to manipulate defenders on this play. Where does he want to go? This open B gap. You've got guys sealed off to either side, but Mosley is there. How do you get Mosley out of there? A big lateral cut towards the outside. Mosley pursues. He moves out of the gap. Then Stevenson makes a very deliberate cut back inside, runs where he always wanted to go, and turns this into a nice gain. I couldn't remember how he did at the combine, so I went and looked it up, and it was not good. He ran poorly, he jumped poorly, he didn't knock out much on the bench press, but what he was big, and he did well in the agility drills, and I think that makes a lot of sense when you watch Rhamondre Stevenson play. I don't think he quite has the explosiveness to create like game-breaking plays on the ground, but what he is very good between the tackles, very good at finding holes in tight quarters. He has very good footwork. He can make guys miss in a phone booth, and he has the body type to hold up from a lot of blows. And you saw that with everything in the first part of this run, right? Good job picking through the mess. Now he's in the open field, and from there, he's not as dynamic. Rhamondre is on the bubble just because there's some really dynamic backs, like more dynamic than him. Ken Walker, Travis Etienne, Bijan and Gibbs, who if they figure it all out will pass him, but they haven't yet, so he's still here. It was a great year for rookie backs last year, but I think one stood out above the rest. Breece Hall is my number 8 guy. I know we have a very limited sample of Breece Hall games, but he looked like a superstar when he was in. He was stringing together monster performances before he got hurt. I think I've seen enough. I think I'm ready to call it. He's a top 10 back. And I like this play from the Jets, a bit of a trap play. The center is going to vacate his initial area. The nose guard who was lined up over him gets a bit too far upfield when he's immediately popped by that right guard. He's kind of run himself out of his gap, and Breece Hall is ready to take advantage. I like Breece's acceleration once he gets this ball, moves upfield quickly. This run-supporting safety can't reach him in time. He misses that tackle. Breece Hall is on to the next challenge. There's a big pile up down the field, and he runs into his own blocker. But I love the footwork. Doesn't get tripped up while he's stepping around his leg. Hall turns on the Jets, beats Ward to the sideline. Only the safety John Johnson has the angle to eventually catch up with him. But that ability to pick through the first 2 levels and then burst into the third and burn angles, I love it. And that home run speed is something serious. Look when he really opens it up here as he flies by the safety. He's on a field full of elite athletes, and he looks like the fastest one. Only 2 ball carriers ever ended up moving faster than Breece Hall on that play over the course of the entire season. Here they give him a toss, but the Packers are ready for it. They take away the edge, and it's all footwork from here. Hall initially presses downhill, gets Kenny Clark, I think that is, to commit to the tackle, but he's just set him up. Plant that inside foot, get outside. What's the next challenge? There's Quay Walker disengaging, ready to make a tackle. Plant that outside foot, cut inside. What's the next challenge? There's Darnell Savage, ready to clean it up. Spin move. Doesn't quite get away from him, but is able to fall forward and pick up an extra yard or 2. It's about solving problems. Where is the next threat to me coming from, and what can I do to avoid him? Hall has this in spades. He's a very creative runner, and he's got all that dynamic ability. Here they give Hall a screen, and Kenny Clark and Devondre Campbell are quick to recognize this, and Hall just eviscerates them both. He catches this out of the backfield, gets his eyes to Clark, sees that he's moving laterally pretty quickly, and he says, you know what, Kenny Clark, I think I can change directions faster than you. He sinks his hips, drives that outside foot, and watch this all happen in full speed. Boom. Clark goes flying to the ground like an anime guy who just got punched. Next, Hall is sizing up Devondre Campbell, who's moving this way. And once again, Hall says, I bet you can't change directions faster than me. Plants that inside foot, strings a cut together, blows by Campbell. Watch them both together. Catches the screen, 1 cut, 2 cuts, makes 2 very good defenders miss, and picks up a nice amount of yards. That combination of coordination, creativity, and home run speed meant that Breece Hall finished number 1 among qualified backs in yards per attempt. He was efficient on the ground and he was productive through the air. He was top 5 among running backs in yards per route run, and he drew 5 targets a game, so he had a lot of volume, and he made the most of it. I would say in terms of negatives, I don't think he runs with elite, unstoppable power behind his pads, but he's not below average in terms of play strength and running through contact at all, so it's not even really a weakness. I don't have too many nits to pick with Hall's game. My only real question with him is, will he look the same after the ACL tear? And if he does, I think he'll be one of the best backs in the whole league. I think he was on his way to being that and got hurt right when he was breaking out. At number 7, I've got the 49ers running back / offensive weapon, Christian McCaffrey. I don't think there's any doubt Christian McCaffrey is the best receiving back in the league. And if you're going to call man coverage and have a linebacker on him, good luck, because he can motion out into space. They confirm it's man when the linebacker follows, and then you've got him running deep down the field, and you're asking this guy to hang with him, it's not going to happen. It's very hard to call man coverage against the 49ers because they employ not only Christian McCaffrey, but also like Ayuk, who has a bunch of separation here. There's always someone who's going to be open, and McCaffrey is one of them. He can really torch you. Here it's third down and short. You got McCaffrey out there. You got Kittle out there. It's 11 personnel, and you can't put too many corners out there because it's third and short. They might run it right up the middle. You want some bigger bodies. So there's a limited amount of corners, and there's a lot of dynamic wide receiver threats. And what that creates is mismatches. On third and short, you've got McCaffrey out wide on a linebacker. He runs a whip route, creates separation, makes a nice catch a little bit behind him, turns upfield, and converts. If you were to move McCaffrey to slot receiver full time, I think he would totally excel. I think he'd be one of the best in the league because he understands how to set guys up with footwork, how to set guys up with tempo and head fakes. He torches man coverage. He's not afraid to make catches over the middle of the field. He knows when to settle down in zone. He's open all of the time. And on top of all that receiving ability, he can take it between the tackles. He's got good vision. He can tell that Aaron Donald is really getting pushed far inside here. And then you've got the best tackle in the league, Trent Williams, climbing to Bobby Wagner. And if all this stays the same, if Donald keeps moving this way, and Wagner is about to start quickly moving this way once the block starts, there's going to be a lane in between those two players for McCaffrey to run through. That's exactly what develops. He's ready for it, sneaks through the gap, and turns this into a nice play. With all that being said, there's a reason he's ranked 8th. I don't think that he's a dynamo with the ball in his hands. I think he can get what's blocked for you, but in terms of creating his own yards, I'm unimpressed. This is the exact same play. This time McCaffrey has to do a little bit more work, does a nice job stepping outside, finding the grease, pushing upfield. Now it's just him versus the safety, Ryan Neal. Can he make a miss in a phone booth? No. They give him a little toss, they get him the ball in space, and it comes down to, can he break this arm tackle from Nwosu? And the answer is no. He actually ends up getting dragged backwards. He can't even fall forward. What a tackle from Nwosu. I've already shown you Rhamondre Stevenson and Breece Hall catching the ball in space like this, putting their foot in the ground, making the first guy miss, sizing up the next defenders, seeing the leverage here, which would be through this gap, and then stringing two jukes together and getting out in the open field. McCaffrey catches it in space and doesn't do anything with it. He's still pretty quick. Here he catches it. I love how he has a sense of where defenders are behind him, and a lot of times when he catches something, he's able to accelerate and make someone miss like that. But once this happens, he's one-on-one with Bobby Wagner, who can't really move that well anymore. And I've watched so many running backs watching this video that I can just imagine a different running back getting on his horse and burning these angles. But with McCaffrey, he kind of comes to a full stop, tries to make Wagner miss in space, and he can't do it. And I feel a little bit bad saying like, oh, he should do this specific thing. You should set him up real quick and then blow by him. Like, breaking tackles is an inherently creative thing, and these are big players who get paid to tackle. So when guys get hands-on, it's kind of tough to say like, well, you should simply run out of it and score a touchdown. But when I'm watching these other guys, like just more frequently, I see them in situations where it's them or the defender, and more frequently than McCaffrey, I see other guys find ways to win somehow. Saying someone should have broken a tackle when they didn't isn't quite the same as saying someone should have made a catch when they didn't. It's just a little bit harder to quantify than that. It's a little bit harder to prove that negative. So I think the numbers do a decent job illustrating what I'm saying with Christian McCaffrey. I put together a chart where I tracked broken tackle rate and explosive run rate. And if you're really good in both, you're probably the most dynamic runner in the league. That's Nick Chubb. Spoiler alert, he's number 1 on this list. McCaffrey is 29th. The only guy on this list lower than him is going to be Saquon Barkley, and I think Saquon Barkley and McCaffrey's situations in terms of the systems that they're in and the offensive line that's in front of them, I think Barkley has way more of an excuse, and on film, I think that you can see Barkley is substantially more explosive and elusive. I always get shit on Twitter for ranking Aaron Jones above Christian McCaffrey, but I think that's what shows on tape, at least as a runner, and over the last 3 years, Aaron Jones is averaging over half a yard a carry more than McCaffrey. I understand what he brings as a movable piece. His receiving ability is why he's in this top 10. He is the best in this top 10 at receiving. But at the end of the day, if you're a running back, I want you to be the best running the football. So he's 8 because although he's the best receiver on the list, I think he is the worst pure runner. And number 6 on this list, we have Saquon Barkley, who had a bounce back year in 2022. In terms of like raw talent, Saquon might be number 1 in the league. Here, the safety's going to blitz. He's going to have a free shot at Saquon, and Barkley just humiliates him. And then he cuts it back front side and humiliates the rest of the team. Not many guys moving like this in the open field in the league. Here versus Washington, he finds a crease through the A-gap. Now it's just him and the safety, and he hits this safety with a wicked spin move. The very next play, once again, there's a crease in the A-gap. Once again, it's one-on-one, him and the safety. And once again, he hits him with a spin move that was even better than the one before. And he's moving so fast when he tries this stuff. I feel like a lot of guys do spin moves, but not a lot of guys are able to do it at top speed like Barkley is here without tripping and falling. Now, Barkley can't do this just in his natural stride. He has to come to balance. He's got to get his feet even. And from here, he can hit the spin move without falling over. It's just still faster than everybody else. When Brian Daboll got to New York, he told Saquon Barkley, stop dancing behind the line of scrimmage. And it's a message I think he took to heart. On this play, they're going to run a toss, and it's not looking great at this point here. You've got 3 blockers to block 4 defenders. But Saquon still trusts the scheme here. He follows 76. He doesn't try to set anybody up or make anybody miss. He's just not breaking his stride, following his linemen. A crease eventually opens up. He was decisive, and he was rewarded with a big touchdown. However, even though Saquon was more decisive last year than he has been in the past, his efficiency numbers didn't quite match up with his talent level, and I think sometimes he can still be the victim of trying to do too much. Here he's going to catch a pass out of the backfield, and he jumps to grab this thing. And what you see a lot of receivers do in this situation is they know what's developing behind them. They know that they just stretched everybody out to the sideline, so what they'll do is plant their outside foot as soon as they catch this thing and come down, so they can spin back inside and force these guys to change direction. Saquon doesn't do that here, and that's fine, but if you are going to look behind you, assess the situation, see you've got this guy, I would prefer you catch this thing and keep moving upfield, try to win some angles and get what you can out of this if you're not going to pirouette back inside. What I don't like is just coming to a full stop, balancing your feet, and letting both these guys get a shot at you. Yes, there are 2 guys in pursuit, but Saquon could have made it a one-on-one by making a decision and going in a specific direction. And I like him a lot more in a one-on-one than a 2-on-1 when there's no blockers to help. And of course, he just gets tackled. This is not all Saquon's fault because his center gets pushed way into the backfield immediately, but he doesn't bail anybody out here. So they're running wide zone, and at this point you can see that this defensive tackle is making his way upfield. So Saquon's got to make a decision. Can I beat him and stretch this to the sideline, or am I going to have to cut this inside? And he fakes like he's going to cut it inside and then just tries to stretch it to the edge anyway, which just runs him right into the defender, and he gets tackled for a huge loss here. I think this is indecisiveness. Like, at the handoff point, make a decision. Either go or cut. And he tries to do both, and it's a big negative. On this play, the line is going to open up a big hole right up the middle, and he's going to have a full head of steam moving forward, which is very scary. Saquon with a full head of steam moving forward is very scary. And in this situation, he's going to have to break a tackle at the second level here. I would advise just running. Just go. Maybe change direction a little bit to run away from him, but hit him with the stiff arm and do not stop churning those legs. But he tries to put a move on him. Right here, you see him even his feet to get balanced, to change directions, or to do a spin or something. It's like, don't do a spin. You are Saquon Barkley with a full head of steam. That is scary. That is difficult to tackle if you just run through somebody. But he's a little bit too excited to try to juke someone out, I think. And I think on this particular play, he didn't give himself a great chance to break this tackle. For all of his talent, Saquon Barkley was only eluding tackles on 13.6% of his carries last year. That's the lowest of anyone you'll find on this top 10 list. And I'm not dumb. I know he's better at breaking tackles than Ezekiel Elliott and Latavius Murray. I think Saquon might have the deepest bag, and he's been plenty productive, which gives him this spot on the list. But I think everybody above him has a slightly better feel for the position than Saquon does. With that said, though, I of course recognize that he has had very bad luck with injuries, offensive coordinators getting fired, bad offensive line play. I really think these next 2 to 3 years could be his best stretch. Even though he's coming off a bit of a disappointing year, I still have Johnathan Taylor slotted in the top 5. One of Taylor's great strengths is his patience and vision behind the line of scrimmage. On this play, it looks like the Colts have dialed up inside zone, and Taylor's initial aiming point is going to be the outside leg of this play side guard, and he's going to be reading the defensive end, DeMarcus Lawrence. Now, the Colts try to initially combo Lawrence, but it doesn't really move him anywhere. They don't create any displacement, and right now, Lawrence is in a good position to rock either outside or inside and make a tackle on Taylor. There's also Leighton Vander Esch to worry about up here. So what does Taylor do? He takes some steps like he's going to cut this back. That causes Vander Esch to fall back and ensures that Kelly will have an angle to block him towards the boundary. And it will also cause DeMarcus Lawrence to rock inside and commit that way. Once those two things have happened, a lane opens up. After pressing that cutback, he moves back into his original gap and turns this into a nice run. Same deal on this play against the Steelers. He is pressing this B gap hard, really getting downhill, and what does that do? It forces these defenders to really commit that way, and it gives the linemen time to reach their blocks and set up this cutback. Now, another thing I love about Johnathan Taylor is he is very interested in going straight ahead. I think a lot of running backs here might try to run towards this open space with a really severe cutback, but Johnathan Taylor understands, hey, these guys are on the ground. Even though it slows me up and I might get tackled eventually, I'm going to just kind of walk over and step over these Steelers to chew up as many yards as I possibly can. I mean, he gets 10 yards after contact here, even though he's kind of running right into the teeth of the defense. Next Gen Stats tracks how much time running backs spend going north and south as opposed to east and west, because they track all the players' movements during the game. And as the ball carrier is making his way down the field, he's not always going in a straight line towards the end zone. They are moving sideline to sideline, trying to make people miss or trying to press a certain concept or whatever. So this stat measures how many yards forward does this person go versus the amount of yards total ran. And they're able to see who is spending the most time going north and south. And Johnathan Taylor, his rookie year, ranked 11th. During his record-breaking 2021 season, he was second in the league. And this past season, he ranked 6th. Even though he can take his time setting up blocks behind the line of scrimmage, there is very little fat on a Johnathan Taylor run. On this play, Tank Lawrence ducks inside and Anthony Barr doesn't spill over with proper depth, which really creates this soft edge for him to take this outside. But he's not going to widen this out too much where he's wasting time. He takes a very tight angle as close to directly up the field as he can, and he just barely avoids this ankle tackle, and then he's able to get his arm into Barr's frame and stiff arm him away. Once he's done with that, he's not trying to bend the edge. He's trying to put his foot in the ground and continue to work upfield. So you've got this guy who is great at getting the most out of the structure of the play with his vision and patience. You've got a guy who chews up yardage quickly by getting downhill, and then you throw in some dynamic ability and some real home run speed. He messes with your angles behind the line of scrimmage, and then he burns them once he gets to the second level. He is very fast. Add to that above average elusiveness. Here he's seen making a catch down the field, and although he catches this moving forward, he's quickly able to jump cut backwards, making a guy miss, then sidestep Tre'Davious White and fall forward for a touchdown. I also think he has good play strength with the leg drive to push the pile forward and drag individual defenders for extra yards. Now, he was disappointing in 2022. And I think that he was a bit too hesitant behind the line of scrimmage. He's playing behind a bad run-blocking offensive line this year. And when green space opens up like this, why not hit it? Maybe there's a reason that I can't think of right now, but to me, this seems like a guy being a bit too hesitant when there was a better option open and not getting the most out of this run. Similar deal here. On this play, I get that if you can get Vander Esch to commit this way, this is going to be a great look, and right now it's just an okay look. But when there's 99 right there, maybe this just isn't the time to try to press this and get people to overcommit one direction. Maybe this would be a time where it would be better just jetting through this as fast as you possibly can. Against the Raiders here, 30's blitz blows up this run play side. Luckily, Taylor is able to break the tackle, and when he cuts back, there seems to be a pretty decent gap for him to run through. But he thinks, oh, everybody thinks I'm going to run through that gap, and tries to cut this back play side where he just runs directly into Max Crosby, and this run goes nowhere when I think it could have ended up going somewhere. But that's pretty nitpicky. The bigger problem for Taylor might be ball security, something he struggled with at Wisconsin, and he had 3 fumbles in 10 games this year. And I don't think Taylor is much of a receiving back. He does not offer anything in terms of positional versatility, and he's not super coordinated making catches. But I think his strengths far outweigh his weaknesses, and I think an underrated reason why he had an underwhelming year is because when he was healthy, he played the Jaguars, the Chiefs, the Titans twice, Washington, Pittsburgh, and Dallas. And all of these teams were in the top half of the league by rushing defense DVOA. So it was a pretty brutal schedule. And even with that and the line play and all the nagging injuries, he was still on pace for 1,400 rushing yards. So I think he's a big bounce back candidate. At number 4, I've got Aaron Jones, who has been consistently excellent over the course of his career and is coming off arguably his best season. People on Twitter always think I'm lying when I talk about how good Aaron Jones is, but I'm not. The guy is absolute dynamite whenever he touches the ball, and he has been for years and years and years now. The situations he's able to worm his way out of every single game, it just blows my mind. Look, the point of run defense is to build a wall, fill all the gaps, and that's exactly what's happened here. There's nowhere for Jones to go, so he just puts his head down and just kind of burrows behind Lazard as far as this block will take him. He feels contact from 23, and as soon as he feels 23 touch him, he hits a spin move to break the tackle. Now he's back heading forward, his eyes are up, and there's daylight in front of him. He created this out of nothing and is able to turn a wall into an explosive play for Green Bay. And when the line does create an opening, Jones is not afraid to play fast behind the line of scrimmage, flying through this with no hesitation. And he's moving fast enough that the nickel corner Teron Johnson, who's lined up like a linebacker here, isn't able to reach him, even though he's never really blocked. So he is able to outrun the support, and he runs into the two safeties, and he's able to make them both miss in tight quarters by just jumping into his blocker here. That way, I think that's Damar Hamlin, doesn't have a good angle, and the other safety, I think that's Poyer, can't make the tackle because he's getting blocked. Yes, Jones is dealing with contact, but it's contact that's on his own terms. He's able to land, regain his balance, and start up the field again. It's the field corner that ends up ending this run. On this play, the Packers line does a good job moving bodies, running power here, and Jones has a nice lane at the first level, but then at the second level, both linebackers Morrow and the all-pro Roquan Smith do a good job of evading their blockers, and now with Jones headed upfield, there's two linebackers both outside of him and inside of him ready to bring him down. He is dead to rights here, but if he can sneak in right behind Mercedes Lewis here, maybe it will just be an arm tackle from Morrow. He has the vision to detect this and the ability to pull it off. He cuts through that tiny gap, runs through the arm tackle. While he's stumbling forward, he just lands on one foot. He's able to keep his balance, regain his feet, and even tries to put a move on the next player with a stiff arm, trying to shake him off, but it doesn't work. Help rallies. And this run may not go on the all-time highlight reel, and it may not make best runs of 2022 or anything like that, but it is so special to be able to make two players like this miss in a phone booth that small. Like the vision to just know that it's there for you and the ability to actually pull it off. And the first down marker, by the way, is here. So he didn't pick up that many yards after hitting this, but he did pick up a key first down. Watch Morrow. He can't believe it. He's got to be like, what? We had him locked up. I mean, look at this. He is surrounded by 4 guys here closing in on him. And it's like he gets a Super Mario superstar. He just somehow cuts and makes them all miss. And yes, he gets tackled right after, but like he made them all miss. I think Jones has fine straight line speed. I don't think it's anything great. I think that he can turn corners without losing much speed, which can make him very fast behind the line of scrimmage. But once he's actually in the open field, is he going to win in the foot race versus Roquan Smith, who is a very fast linebacker? But, you know, he's faster than Jones, right? Jones is only 5'9", probably 210 pounds if I had to guess. He's not the biggest running back. So if he's not that fast and he's not that big, he basically just needs insane elusiveness, and that's what he has. It's harder for him than other guys to make guys miss and shed contact, but he just finds a way to do it with his body control. So he's not quite the same level athlete as some of the other guys on this list, and the other negative about Aaron Jones is ball security. He loves to stiff arm. He loves to use his arms as a weapon. He does it all the time. He's very good at it. But when he does that, he takes his hand off the ball. He's carrying it in one hand, often carrying it in one hand in traffic because he's trying to evade a tackle. And he has fumbled a lot and in crucial situations during his career. And I guess the other negative about Jones compared to some of these other guys is he is just smaller. That kind of goes into the athlete thing. But with his stature and his play style, I don't think any coach has ever really trusted him to be the only guy in a backfield. So he has split time with Jamal Williams. He has split time with a power back like A.J. Dillon. But he can receive. He lines up in the slot a lot or out wide a lot, and he makes tough catches. He is not as consistent as McCaffrey catching the football, but he can make some pretty spectacular grabs for a running back. He was one of the biggest receiving threats at running back in the league. The Packers would split him out wide in the slot, in line, and they would have him run real routes down the field, and he got targeted on those routes. Aaron Rodgers would always try this. It's important to note that Aaron Jones is good at that aspect of the game, but I just don't think it can be overstated how talented of a runner he is. 5.1 yards per attempt in his career is the 5th most by a running back all time. Playing now, only Nick Chubb, Johnathan Taylor, and Derrick Henry can come close to him, and I'd say that's pretty good company to be in. Here are some more efficiency stats. He is top 15 in DYAR every single year, top 5 most years. 2017, he didn't qualify, but look at how high it is. He crushes all the metrics. You'll find Aaron Jones at the very top of all of them with the elite guys, and it's not just a stats thing, and it shows on the field. He is an elite, supremely gifted runner. I don't think there's another back in the league who can combine his historic efficiency, his talent on the ground, his consistency year to year, with his ability to split out wide and run routes down the field. Like, as a complete back, he might be the best in the league, but he is small. He is someone that no coaching staff has really trusted to really be the workhorse in the backfield. It's always been Jamal Williams there and A.J. Dillon there, like I mentioned. So I put him behind 3 workhorses coming off great seasons, including 2 historic era-defining backs, but I think 4 is a fair spot for him. At number 3, I've got the reigning rushing champion, Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs runs hard. On this play, the right guard and the right tackle do a great job opening up a big lane for the fullback and running back to run through. Once that happens, the fullback does a nice job taking care of the linebacker. Mac Hollins does a nice job climbing to the safety, and that leaves this corner to fill the C gap and tackle Jacobs, and watch what happens to him. Boom. He gets destroyed. Here is the exact same play from the exact same game, but this time the safety is down, which means that he can beat Mac Hollins to the spot and fill this gap a little bit easier. Jacobs doesn't like it. He bounces this outside. He's got good speed to do so. And once he's in the open field here, his decision is, I'm going to kill the safety. I'm just going to kill him. And Reed did a nice job to trip him up after he got trucked, but I like the run from Jacobs. I like that he's willing to dole out that kind of punishment. Here he does it again, takes a check down in the flat, transitions to a runner, lowers the shoulder, and picks up extra yards. Jacobs is stocky. He's well built with a low center of gravity. He can be an effective battering ram when he wants to be. And he needs to be here. This is a key 2-point conversion attempt to bring it to overtime against the Chiefs. They give it to Jacobs, but the look is bad. It's a nice job by Saunders to eat this double team without getting knocked backwards at all. Chris Jones is dominating his block and getting into that middle gap. Justin Reed is shooting as well. This is not a good look for Jacobs, but when he lowers that shoulder, he's able to run through this arm tackle from Jones. He's able to absorb the hit from Reed, churn forward, get into the end zone from a bad look. Not only does Jacobs have that power, he also has elusiveness. He also has footwork. Here, the Raiders' front is building double teams. They do a good job covering up these tackles, but they can't climb. So you've got Justin Simmons coming downhill hard. Jacobs does not want that. He bends this outside. He's going to be one-on-one with Josie Jewell in space, and he totally sets him up with the Sutter step. Slow up like he might change direction, force Jewell to get his body weight going the wrong way, and then drive off that opposite foot and get right by him. How elusive is this play? Initially, he's aiming towards this B-gap bubble, but the tackle does a good job crossing the face of the right guard and getting in there, so he has to cut this back the other direction. Now, from here, he's got eyes on this linebacker and this safety coming downhill fast. If he presses the line of scrimmage, he's hoping maybe they'll get too far in the middle of the field and he can bounce this outside, but number 50 does a nice job preventing that from happening and sealing off this edge. So what does Jacobs do? That's not going to work. He plants that outside foot, spins back inside, makes 50 miss. Now there's a bit of daylight. He's able to run through the tackle from Jewel and turn nothing into a big something as he gets inside the red zone. I think Jacobs' contact balance this year was as good as anybody in the league. Better than Johnathan Taylor. Better than Derrick Henry. It's rare that Jacobs misses a hole. Here they're going to run a draw play, and initially they're going to build a combo on this nose tackle, and you'd like 76 to kind of overtake him, let the center climb to Wagner, and if the center climbs to Wagner, and if 76 can seal the nose tackle off from this weak side A gap, that's going to be a very good lane for Jacobs to run through, but that's not what happens. They don't really get control of this nose. He can still make a play in that gap. So where's the leverage here? It's going to be in between 76's outside shoulder and behind 68 here. That's a tight gap, but Jacobs is able to squeeze through there. Then he's able to run through an arm tackle and actually turn this into a pretty nice play. On top of all the dynamic rushing ability he showed this year, he also brings it as a pass protector. I think he's one of the best in the league in that area. The other nice thing about Jacobs is he is a natural hands catcher. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. He is a complete 3-down player. He went supernova this year. I think he deserves a lot of credit as one of the most well-rounded backs in the entire league. He did everything at a high level. It's tough to nail down definitive weaknesses in Josh Jacobs' game when he is playing like this, and maybe home run speed isn't totally elite. One thing that Josh McDaniels mentioned was ball security for him. He can carry the ball kind of a little loose outside of his frame. Maybe he is not always protecting it the way he could. Like on this run here, I think it's notable that he's carrying that thing pretty low and loose, about to get tackled from that side. And although he doesn't fumble here, it does come out when he hits the ground, and he hurt his finger on this play. I think the biggest issue with Jacobs is consistency. He has not gone this crazy year after year like Derrick Henry does, or like Nick Chubb has done. Look, through the first 13 weeks of the season, Josh Jacobs was on top with 20.44 total EPA gained on the ground. But he wasn't quite able to keep that up the whole year. The last 5 weeks of the season, he was 108th in total rushing EPA. It just doesn't seem like he was running as intensely at the end of the year on this play. He does a nice job following this tight end through an open hole. It's a great look for Jacobs. He's one-on-one with this defensive back. And in week 4 against the Chiefs, he would just run this guy over, right? He doled out punishment. Here, he's not so interested in doing that. He tries to sidestep him, stepping towards his inside help, and just gets tackled. And it's tough to say like, oh, Josh Jacobs should have lowered his head and ran this guy over and scored a touchdown. Like, it's kind of a creative thing, and saying you should have broken a tackle here is always a little bit tough for me to say, but his worst games in terms of yards after contact per attempt were weeks 14, 17, 18, 10, 15, and 16. So I think it's fair to say that either something bothered him at the end of the year, or he kind of took his foot off the gas. And maybe it's as simple as he wasn't the same after the bad injury to his hand that happened in week 14. That does coincide right with his downturn. I think it's probably just something like that. However, I do want to flag that downturn just because sometimes these big performances in contract years aren't repeatable, and he did seem to fade a little bit down the stretch. At number 2, I've got the king, Derrick Henry. I think it's probably true that Derrick Henry's best years are behind him, but I am, by no stretch of the imagination, ready to call him washed. As long as he has his unique balance of acceleration and size, he will be a load for NFL defenses to handle. On this play, he's lined up as the single back, and watch how quickly he's able to reach top speed in the backfield. He is moving fast when he takes his handoff from Tannehill, and a guy that big, moving that fast, flying through gaps is difficult. And while he's going top speed, he still has the footwork to sidestep this run-supporting safety, break a tackle, and pick up the first down. On this play, there is absolutely no one on the strong side of this run for the Jaguars after Trayvon Walker tries to jump into this A gap. And now you've got a pulling lineman with a very clear path and 71 climbing with a very clear path. They're able to meet the second level linebackers. That gives Derrick Henry a great look, and he's still got the speed to get to the sideline, burn the angle from number 31, and take this upfield for a massive gain. He may have scored, but Campbell was able to eventually get in front of him, force him to cut back inside, and he gets tackled then. But still has plenty of speed to burn angles and get up the sideline. Here, they try to get Henry the ball in open space via a toss play. I want to shout out the receiver here for pushing this lineman out of harm's way and giving Henry a lot of space to work with. And with that space, Henry takes full advantage. He is a big man moving fast. Like I said, he's still got that acceleration. He is trying to get upfield, but once Cole Holcomb passes the face of this offensive lineman, that's really not a good lane to travel through. You're going to want to use your blocker as leverage and cut back. That's exactly what Henry does. Now, there's a new defender threat, but you're in the same position. You've got a defender with leverage if you can cut back. Henry strings both of those cutbacks together real quick. 1, 2. All right, he's cleared both of these guys. There's a third defender now. How is Henry going to deal with this? He readies the stiff arm, gets right in his frame, throws this guy off of him. So 3 guys he makes miss real efficiently, stringing 1, 2, 3, and eventually the backside support and the safety over the top is able to drag him down. But this is a great agile run from Henry. The other way the Titans were able to give Derrick Henry the ball in space was by dialing up a career-high number of screens, and Derrick Henry rewarded them handsomely with 15 yards per target on those screens, which was the best in the league. These kinds of numbers in the screen game make me think about how gargantuan his numbers could have been this year if he had an above-average offensive line opening up space in front of him. On top of the size, acceleration, and agility, Henry has good vision. They run a lot of outside zone in Tennessee, which is a process of elimination. First place I'm looking, can I stretch the edge? No, the edge is set. Then you just go from outside in with gaps. Can he fit through this gap? No. This gap? No. It's a process of elimination. This gap, no. This gap, no. Just fall back. He cuts back. Here's the gap that's open on the back side. Gallops through there, runs through some ankle tackles, and then it takes the whole team to bring him down. He's able to stay up and help push this pile forward. Here's a gun run from the low red zone, and the 2 paths of least resistance for Henry seem to be this backside A-gap bubble or this frontside B-gap bubble. And initially, it looks like that backside A-gap bubble is the move here. This action from Tannehill draws Milano, and Tremaine Edmonds' initial steps are towards that B-gap bubble. So it looks like there's going to be no one there, and Henry can run straight ahead into the end zone. But there's really a great play from, I believe that's Jordan Phillips, surviving this double team and being able to penetrate into that gap, ruining Henry's plan. But he's very quick to react, and he heads towards the B-gap bubble, where it seems like maybe Tremaine Edmonds was supposed to be, but when it looked like Henry was pressing downhill, Tremaine Edmonds fell inside. So now he dives into the appropriate gap where it's open for a touchdown. Even though the Tennessee run offense was a bit underwhelming as a whole, they were still very good in power running situations when they just need a yard for the first down, because it's just so tough to beat Henry's combination of size, explosiveness, and vision in those situations. At the end of the day, there's no real reason to drop Derrick Henry too low in your running back rankings. He's coming off a monster season. He's still big and fast and fleet of foot. However, even with all that good with Derrick Henry, there is still some bad, or at least some decline, I think, from where he was a couple years ago. I think that mostly shows up in his contact balance and play strength. I don't think he's as good at breaking tackles as he used to be. Here, a defender just lightly wraps around his ankle, and that's enough to bring him down. He's still above average at it, but I think bringing Henry down on first contact has been easier these last 2 years than it was the 2 years prior. This column on the screen is yards after contact per attempt. These last 2 seasons, Henry has averaged almost 3.5 yards after contact per attempt. The previous 2 seasons, that was a half yard higher at around 4. This Titans run blocking unit was bad. They got shredded against good defenses. Henry dealt with a lot of contact in the backfield and a lot of tight creases, and he couldn't quite make things happen in those situations like he used to. It's important to remember the obvious. Derrick Henry is one of the biggest running backs ever. He can't quite slither through the smallest of gaps like maybe some other guys can. So if the offensive line isn't creating any space, that is especially bad news for a guy like Henry, I think. There were 4 games this season against Denver, Philadelphia, Cincinnati, and Buffalo where Derrick Henry wasn't even able to get to 3 yards per carry. Also, although Henry wrecked shop on screens this year, he is still pretty uncoordinated when it comes to actually catching the football. He's kind of got stone hands. In obvious passing situations, it was often Dontrell Hilliard on the field. Everyone seems to be trying to fade Derrick Henry all the time. I just don't buy it when he rushed for 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns on an offense that has like no other good players on it. At the top of my list, I've got Nick Chubb, and I'll keep this brief because this has already been a very long video, and I'm also like 3 days late getting this into my producers, and this is my last section, so I'm just going to talk over the highlight reel. I'm sorry, Browns fans. I'll do a big review on him when he goes off for the first time next season. But yes, he is the best in the league right now. I think he has been for a while. I think that him and Henry are the 1A and 1B in the post-Adrian Peterson world of best running backs of this moment or best running backs of this era. I think that's kind of how I defend this era, is like post-Adrian Peterson, but whatever. He is just very difficult to tackle. He is so strong. He runs with such a low center of gravity. He's got stiff arms. He's got jukes. He's got agility. He's got everything in the bag to make you miss. And when he's got a full head of steam going at his size, I mean, it's just over. He knows how to use it. He's an absolutely punishing back who can beat you in every different way. He's also a fantastic pass blocker. He is a good receiver. He's coordinated out of the backfield. I think that he's the complete package right now. He is number one on all the efficiency metrics every year for a reason. It shows up on tape. He just dominates year in and year out in all different sorts of ways. And I don't think that there's really a big weakness in his game. Maybe he doesn't quite have like the home run speed that Adrian Peterson had, and that's kind of what prevents him from being like maybe a Hall of Famer. He's had some injuries in the past, but yeah, he's pretty special, and he's my number one. So that's my full list. Let me know what you agree with, disagree with in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't, of course, to the Stay Hot channel. And yeah, I also want to give a shout out to 2 honorable mentions. These guys are not, I can't argue that they're top 10 guys, but I have like a deep down feeling that they are. And those 2 are healthy Rashad Penny. I love healthy Rashad Penny, and a healthy J.K. Dobbins, hopefully, going forward. I love those 2. I just can't, in good faith, put them on any kind of list. So with that being said, that's officially the end. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for watching this entire monster video.